Welcome everyone to another episode of UFO Man Live. This week we're going to go back to our old way of doing things. We're going to go back to the UFO format. But Tommy and I discussed this, and we're going to expand our segments into two separate subjects. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Langenburg Canadian UFO sighting in 1974, and we're also going to be talking about an alleged aggressive group of Sasquatch in North Carolina. So we're going to be talking about cryptids. But before we do that, we need to introduce each other. I am UFO Man, and to my side is my friend and my co-conspirator, Tommy Highway. Introduce yourself, Tommy.
Hello, folks. I'm Tommy Highway. I'm a network engineer, former government employee, an author, and a ufologist. I want to thank everybody for coming out as usual. We're going to have a great show tonight. And Tim, my brother, thank you for having me as always.
You're welcome. And we have a new panelist this week. His name is Thomas. Thomas, introduce yourself.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Thomas. I'm a software engineer, longtime game designer, video game fanatic, and more importantly, a deeply involved ufologist who kind of into CE5 and meditation as well as remote viewing. So, got to see it from all perspectives.
Well, that's very cool. All right. Tonight, in regards to the Canadian UFO encounter, I need to make a statement in regards to that. Most of the UFO sightings being filmed in the United States as of late have been nothing but unusual lights in the sky or orb type UFOs. Occasionally you'll get a disc or maybe a tic-tac shape, but usually lately there hasn't been very many structured vehicles. Now, in other countries, on the other hand, there have been a lot of structured vehicles being filmed. Whether the majority of them are real or not, that's left to speculation, because there's a lot of people out there that are very good with CGI and Photoshop.
Yeah. But it also have something to do with the government and what we keep out of our airspace compared to other, governments.
Right. It could very well be something to do with our government. Yes. A lot of hidden technology. I'm sure we're very advanced, considering that in 1929, there was the first test of the Haunebu anti-gravitational disk in Germany. That was in 1929. By 1942, they had a cylinder vehicle that was anti-gravitational, and they had several different versions of the Haunebu and the Vril. And that was captured by the Allies as well as by Russia and other countries. So everybody since 1942 has worked on those projects to try and reverse engineer that technology and make it better. So I'm sure that it could very well be some of that. But Tommy, what do you think?
Well, I tell you, it's hard to say. I mean, the government's always working on some kind of classified, top secret black projects. I mean, that's why we spend $2,800 on a hammer, that should cost $5. I mean, so, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that we have all kinds of really cool stuff cooking. And again, we talked about Bob Lazar before. I believe Bob Lazar. I believe what he said when he said that we were actually experimenting on various discs, 9 of them in all. I think he's a credible person, a credible story. So, yeah, I'm sure that we're using everything that we can possibly use to our advantage militarily that we can get our hands on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bob Lazar, and also, oh, God, my keyboard's messing up. Bob Lazar, and also several other renowned ufologists have credible information out there. I want to welcome Candy Brock to the stream, Ford72, Anna Ridgway, and John Bruno, and the Stargate Traveler. All of you, welcome.
Thanks for making this show, because it's not just about what we're saying. It's about everyone that's here and participating and, being part of the action.
Right.
If I could follow up on that one thing you were saying before, Tim, I didn't get a chance on that. You know, taking a look at UFO technologies that have been around for a while, let's just jump forward to 2018, and we've got the patents basically from the U.S. military that take those Tic Tacs we've been seeing flying around, at least documented now, going back to, you know, the early, was it 2004 or so?
Right.
Now we've got the same technology that they are using for those particular ships were all released in patents by the U.S. military in 2018. Now, biggest thing is, in the last month or so, one of the core pieces of that technology, which was superconductivity at room temperature, everyone said it couldn't be done. Well, we have it today. So it just goes to show you, and it's been announced, everyone in the world has it. So those patents have weight, that technology has weight. We didn't get it, you know, because we captured something, reverse engineered it out. We have a deal. They gave us that tech. They trained us on it because there's no way anybody could figure that out.
Right, exactly. Even with 0 point energy, I mean, we have the theory of 0 point energy, but we didn't know how to access it. Someone had to train us.
Yes, exactly.
So before we start this video, any last comments from anyone in the chat room or anyone on the panel? Okay, let's bring up the video. Here we go.
This was about maybe 7 o'clock in the morning when I got up. And Dad said, or my brother phoned me from his farm, and he told me, you better swath all that canola down before it freezes up. So that's what I did. I went out to cut the canola. I went to the east end of the field because the field was opened up the night before. There was rounds made around the field, but I had to go to the east end and finish that little corner off. So on the way down, I cut the field in half and went right down the center where that big slough is sitting there. And coming upon the slough, I come across these dome-shaped objects in the field, and I didn't know what the hell they were, but somebody told me that American hunters use these for hunting geese. So I never thought too much of it, driving to the slough, which is swather. So I got a little closer and I stopped because everything was moving. I thought, well, gee, goose blinds don't move. They sit still. So I thought to myself, well, I might as well get off to see what this contraption is. So I got off on the ladder side of the swather and I walked towards him and I stopped about roughly 15 feet away from the object because I could see right underneath through it to the bottom. The grass was moving. And I thought to myself, what the devil is that contraption anyway? Because they weren't on the ground, they were off the ground. They're about a foot off the ground. And they were sitting there going around the circle. They weren't standing stationary. I thought the machine was stationary, and it wasn't. It was going counterclockwise. The grass was going one way, and the machine was going the other way. So I walked a little closer. I wanted to really see what it was, but it was moving. And instinct told me to back up. So I backed up to stand about at least 15 feet away from him. And I thought to myself, well, that's kind of odd. It's going the opposite way. It's going counterclockwise. It's not going clockwise. It's going counterclockwise. Grass was moving one way and the machine was going the other way. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. I thought, well, I wonder who the hell it is. Some joker probably playing a trick on me. And I was going to walk a little closer. Instinct told me to keep my distance. So I kept my distance and I walked around and looked at it. What the devil is another one on the other side? There were 3 in a row. One on the south side, about maybe 100 feet away. Another one on the north side, 100 feet away. And there was 3 in the center. All 5 machines. There was 2 on the end there. The 2 little ones were guarding the 3 big ones in the center. And it was sitting in a half moon shape. They were sitting like this, all in a circle, half moon position. The others were sitting here. They were sitting here, and I was here. Coming down to turn around, I was about 15 feet away.
I know you've answered this question a million times, but it wasn't natural. It was a machine. These were machines.
It was a machine.
Yeah.
It was natural. It was metal. You could tell it was metal.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
I wanted to go up to and feel them, but instinct told me to keep my distance. Now you tell me how in the hell they didn't land on the crop and they didn't land on the water. And right beside the crop, they didn't hit the crop numbers all the way around the field. There was one there, one this side, and 3 here. They never hit the slough. They hit the outline of the whole slough. The bigger ones were about 30 feet in diameter. They had a lip on them, like a bumper all the way around. And it was gray. Very hot at one time. When the metal was hot, and when it cools off, it gets gray. And that's just the ring on that machine was gray. I'd say it was maybe about that far away from the dome because it was about that thick.
Mhm.
And it was all the way around the bottom. And why was that end of the dome only gray and not the top end? I couldn't figure that one out. The rest of the machine was a shiny silver,
like
a
chrome.
stainless. Yeah, like I'd say they were stainless steel because it was brushed, looked like a brushed aluminum. That's what it looked like. And you could tell there was rivets all around because when it was turning, you could see these little bumps going around once in a while. If you'd blink, you could see the bumps because you watch something in a fan. You look at a fan and you blink, you could make out the whole stripping of the fan. And when you're standing there watching with your eyes open and you go, don't blink, you can't make out what that looks like. You blink, you can make exactly what that fan looks like. It's like this, straight across. But this is the dome of it right here.
So it was sectional like that?
Yeah, oh yeah. It was because you could tell the lip on this side was hot at one time. And up here there was just like rivets going around it all the way around. All you could tell, there was some compartments, but you couldn't make out what they were. And now, you blink and you could see rivets. They were round. They had round tops on them. And they were going around. There was some in the top, some in the center, some in the bottom. The outside dome was chrome, and that foot thing was gray. And the bottom machine had 4 pipes, and they were huge. They weren't small. They were all around the outside. And that's what I think made that impression in the ground, because it was turning. I said, the machine is brushed stainless steel. That's what it looks like. And I said, it's as shiny as could be. And it's that bottom lip is about 1 foot wide, and it is not shiny. It's looked like it was hot at one time. What I couldn't figure out, why they were so close together. You couldn't get your hand between the two of them. But when you noticed this, I was standing there and I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Your mind is trying to get this thing all unraveled, but it doesn't unravel. God, I was scared. I was just thinking to myself, they just come towards me. I'm history. And there was 5 of them, and there was only 1 of me. And gee whiz, you start to think, I was scared stiff. I didn't know what to do. If somebody would have just clapped your hands, I think I would drop dead right there. I was so scared. But it's mind-boggling the way it works. It's really mind-boggling. So instinct told me when I walked up to the machine to back up. Because have you ever had instinct tell you this? You walk up to the back end of a combine and there's something turning. And instinct will tell you to back up right away. It won't let you get closer. Or touch something that is turning. You stick your hand into a fan, would you? Instinct will tell you keep your distance. That's what it'll tell you right away. And a lot of guys says, well, how could you tell that? I said, that something in the back of my head was telling me, keep my distance. Stay back. Dangerous. So you keep your distance. And it was cold. I had a parka on that day, gloves on, caps with flaps down, and it was so cold. I was shaking. And then you get towards this goddamn machine that's standing there. I was just gritting my teeth. What the devil could that damn thing be? And it's not a goose blind, because I know what they look like. And I said, well, this damn sucker's turning. Why would it be turning?
Did you hear anything?
No, no sound.
No sound.
No sound. All I could hear was the swaths running. And that, when you walk up to something, your mind goes blank. Because you're so scared that everything seems to. I had this echoing sound in my ears. And I thought, well, the swather ain't running anymore. What the hell? And it disappears out of your mind. Your mind is like a picture. It just stops. And I thought to myself, now what the devil? So I thought, you got all kinds of things going through your head, and you're standing there and thinking and thinking. And then all of a sudden, your mind tells you better back up and go to that swather and get back on and get the H out of here. And I thought to myself, well, I better get on the swather. I backed up all the way to the swather backwards. I didn't take my eyes off the object. And I got on the wheel side of the swather. And you think the swather would move? Engine was dead. Because when I got off, the engine was running. It wouldn't start. The ignition was dead. It was completely dead. And the engine was running when I got off of it. Because the ignition key was turned over to the side. And I tried it and I tried it, and it just would not start. So I'm sitting there waiting. No, I was thinking what the hell to do. What are you going to do? And that damn thing comes towards you. I'm telling you, I was so scared I didn't know. The whites, I could imagine my gloves, the whites, you could see all your knuckles, because I was sitting there just gritting my teeth trying to move, and I couldn't. So it was cold, and I was sitting there. I don't know how long I sat on that spot. I thought to myself, well, the gate is closed over there. How the hell, if I ever get this contraption started, I ain't going to stop. I'm going to go straight through that gate, and I'm not getting off. And it wouldn't move. It just would not move. It was frozen, like somebody just froze it to the ground or whatnot. The engine wouldn't go. So I sat there maybe, I don't know, half an hour, maybe an hour. And all of a sudden, the sucker started to lift off the ground. Well, they were going up slowly in a step formation. The big one, like the three big ones in the center, took off first, and then the little ones followed. And they were just right over top of my head. And I thought to myself, well, now what the hell am I going to do? You look up, what the hell? Now they're over top of my head. And that's going on in your mind. And you look up and I said, no, they're too damn close. They're closer now than they were before. And you could see the whole bottom of that machine. Boy, what an outfit. I said, who the hell makes that? That's the one right there. But the dome could be a little more pointed. It was.
So there wasn't. Was there an opening on the body?
On the bottom, it was open. It was
like a vent.
Like vents. There was about 4 of them. Here there was one in that corner, one in this corner, one over there, and one over here. There was 4 of them. That's all I remember. But they were huge. They weren't small pipes. To me, it looked like it was their way of maneuvering the machine, moving it. But when they were above my head, I couldn't figure this out. They were straight down. Mm-hmm. And how the hell they get from that slough over my head? I was 15 feet away, so they had to move over. So what drove them over sideways? And you try to figure this all out. It doesn't make sense. And then I thought to myself, maybe those pipes, they moved or something, at an angle to get the machine to move over. The pattern was like...
can you draw the underside of those things?
The underside was, well, let's say a round circle like this, and it was round deals like this all the way around. There were portholes, actually. And when you look underneath them, there was more than 4, because when I looked at from the side of it, it looked like there was 4, but there's more. I can't remember now, is it 6 or 7? Was a pile of them anyway, but they all turn according to what that looked like when you look from the bottom up. Mm-hmm. And you know how the machine looked like in the bottom? It was like molded. You couldn't tell if there was bolts or whatever underneath. It wasn't, but it was like that all the way around. And they were on the outside only. The center had a big circle. That's all it had. And there was nothing out of there. But I could still see that as plain as day. I haven't nightmares about this bottom part. And then I thought, well, I better see if that swather's going to start. Still wouldn't start. Everything was dead. So I sat there some more, and they were sitting on one spot. They were just hovering there on one spot over the top of my head. And the crop, it was flattened right out. There was crop on either side of me. And it was the pressure from the objects that were these machines running. You couldn't tell what the hell it was. It was just, all you could see was like when they got higher up, it was like a vapor, like you see behind a jet plane. vapor, but you couldn't see it that clear. It was more like a fog. You know, it was thinner.
Do you think that was just the air, or was that something that the vehicle was pumping out?
Well, it come out of the ports. You know, it come out of these ports, the vapor. It was actually going down. As the thing rose up, it was pushing this vapor down. But
And
I couldn't feel anything. That's what I couldn't figure out.
did it look like smog? Did it look
Well, yeah, something like it.
blue,
you know
gray, or?
how when it hits the ground, it sort
Yeah.
of flares out.
Yeah.
That's what it was doing. But you couldn't feel anything. And you held your hands out like this, but you couldn't feel nothing. And I thought to myself, what the devil is that contraption? I still didn't know about these UFOs. I never even took a thought it was a UFO. But sitting there waiting, and all of a sudden they started to go slowly. And they just took off as a flash. They were gone. And they went to the northeast end of the sky. Man, when they took off, you'd have blinked, you'd have missed them. I was holding on to that swather for dear life. See, it wouldn't have got me off there for no money. But I had to take the swather up too. See, the crop was flat. Why was the crop flat? It was standing up. Well, as soon as they ever got the crop come up, what was pushing the crop down? Well, I don't get, because I couldn't feel anything. The wind, but yet the crop was still down. They were gone in just a wink of the. You winked and you would have missed them. So then the swather started, and I thought, thank God it took off, and I didn't stop. I went straight for the house. And my mother said, well, what the devil took you so long? Dinner time's at 12 o'clock, you know. And I didn't know how to tell her this. Well, I said I was sort of watching something in a slough, not too far from the house. And Dad was reading the newspaper at the other end of the room. We had the house was there was a breakfast nook on the far end, and that's where he was sitting reading the newspaper. And he looks at me and says, "What was it?" Well, you know, I sort of didn't want to tell him. I was sort of nervous, and then I told him. I said it was some kind of object from I don't know where, but they're not there no more. Well, what happened to them? I said, they took off. Well, where did they go? I said, how the hell would I know? They went straight up. That's all I know. And he says to me, were they flying saucers? What's a flying saucer? I didn't know what that was. He read it in the German paper years ago that these objects were flying around in Canada and foreign countries. And he told me about it. Can you go and look? I says, I don't care. Go and look. And Mom was at the telephone. She had phoned my sister. They were going to butcher an animal next day.
The first I heard about is when my mother called. Ruth, something terrible happened. I said, what do you mean? Well, she says Edwin was home for lunch, and he didn't look very good, and he said he saw these circles in the, or these things. They were like flying saucers, and he showed with his hands, you know, how they were shaped and that. And he said there were 5 of them, and then of course my dad didn't believe him. He says, "Oh, come on," and he says, "Yes," and he couldn't eat his lunch, and so then. Yeah, and then this is what my mother was telling me, and she didn't know what to say. And, well, I says, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, it just didn't make sense to me. She says he saw something out there, and he was really scared. I think it scared him half to death. And I says, well, what was it? And she says, I don't know. She says, if it was a plane, it wasn't a plane. I says, well, was it an airplane? Maybe. She said, no.
And Ron Moyer happened to be over there at the house in town here. And she says to my sister, a helicopter had landed in the slough. And I was hollering from the table. I said, no, it wasn't no helicopter. And well, you know how older people are. They don't pay attention to what you're saying. So Ron Moyer, he was out there, and about a half an hour later, out at the farm. And he says to Dad, let's go out to the slough and have a look and see what there really was out there. And they went, and I went and took the swather, standing by the house. And I drove out where I left off, and I went back and forth. They were crawling around in that slough all day long. And I stopped the swather, and I asked them, I said, what are you guys looking for here anyway? Well, you never know. They could have dropped the pen. I says, how do you know they had one?
Were you able to figure out if he was just farting around? If it was just
No, he wasn't farting around. I never disbelieved him. All was unexplainable. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, the facts for what they were, the pictures, the grass, all of that is, you know, it's all what it was. And for me to say, you know, to solve that and say, yeah, it was definitely this, I couldn't do that, you know.
All you could see in the slough was like a tripod, like you got here. The marks were in the slough, in the grass. And all you could see was these marks, and like somebody was walking around. A tripod step going into that object. But there was tracks all around the machine. There was footprints around that spacecraft. But, you know, they're not footprints. They're just, you know, marks in the grass. That's all it is. And that was high grass.
And which one of these had the tracks around it, the stomping?
This one here, the front one. That was sitting on that side had the tripod track on it, like the door actually opened on it. So that machine had to be sitting stationary to open.
Okay, so it had stopped spinning, and there was something triangular.
Yeah, sitting there.
Right there.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And they can't explain this to me. And the scientists, they checked that all out, and they don't know. All they know that they said it was a door that was opened on the side of the spacecraft. Because it was a tripod. They had three, the front leg was here, the two on this side, and it was open. Those tripods sitting right there was open. So you could see there was something was out because the grass was bent down.
Uh-huh. And they walked around.
Yeah.
Just around here?
Just around that front part. There was nowhere else. The grass was all standing up on that side. Huh. Just on this one side over here. There was about 30 feet across the middle. They were big, huge. Oh. And there was three of them sitting like they looked like one machine because they were bumped together so close. And I said, well, how did? Because I said to Ron Myers, what do you think that really was? Devil only knows. That's all he kept saying. I says, I don't know. I says, why are you saying a devil only knows? Well, he says, where were they from? I says, gosh, don't ask me. I didn't stop to ask him. I didn't even get close enough to him because I instinct told him to keep my distance. He says, what do you think it is? I says, I don't know what it is. Why are you asking me this? I'm asking you. You're the cop. You're supposed to be investigating this. And he says, well, I can tell you what they were, but you won't believe me. Well, I says, I have to. I says, I'm the only guy that's seen them. You never seen them. I seen them live. You know, the machine was turning and everything, but they're not here now. But I says, you maybe watch them in the sky because they flew northeast.
Whatever he saw was there, and they came from above and they left via the same route. He saw something.
And I said to the RCMP, I says, you know, in the northeast of the sky, there is red lights, red, orange, yellow, green, all kinds of colors of lights, and they're not sitting still, moving back and forth. He says, what do you think they are? I said, I don't know. I'm asking you that. You're the policeman. Well, he says, why are you asking me? I don't know that either. He's not asking you what they are. I says, I haven't got a clue. And my dad told him, he says, they're unidentified flying objects. And this went on, you know, for maybe 5-10 minutes. And I had just told him, I says, I can't sit there and talk. I have to take off and swath this field. And I got to get it swathed by the day's over. And there was 190 acres there. And so I got that field swathed. Ron Myers says, now what the devil are we going to do? He says, don't look at me. I can't do nothing. I says, well, isn't the RCMP supposed to do something? Fence this place off? How do you know it's not radioactive? Oh, he says, I never thought of that. And it was. We had a guy out from Winnipeg, Manitoba, was a Geiger counter. It was radioactive bad. It just, that machine just rattled when it went into the red. You should have seen the faces of some of those policemen. And they were walking around in those spots. Then those other cover RCMP from Regina come out with German Shepherd dogs. They would not go into those circles. They wouldn't go near. We couldn't get those dogs to go in that circle for no money. I had a little mongrel dog. He wouldn't go close to the slough. The cattle wouldn't go close to it. And people were walking around in there. What I don't get is how they knew the difference between the water and the land. They didn't land in the water, and the water was 2 feet from the edge of the slough. They didn't land in the crop. You tell me, how did they know the difference? See, the crop on the east side of the field wasn't sown right against the slough. There was a blank spot in between, and that's where the grass was growing up, and it was 4 feet high in there. And I said to a lot of guys, and I said, how the hell do they know the difference between water and land? No, you're up that high, you come down. How the hell did they know where to land? Well, I guess they did. They never landed in the water, weren't even close to it. And I said that to the RCMP. Lots of guys would stand there and scratch their head. They didn't know what to answer. I said, well, they didn't land in the crop, and they didn't land in the goddamn slough, in the water. How they could tell the difference between the crop and the slough? The canola, there was a canola field right beside, did not land in the canola. They were right beside it, but not in it. You lie in bed and you think about this. You close your eyes, you can see the whole thing in front of you. And it's, I don't know, it's branded into my fingers and all over. It's a lot of people says, well, how can you keep thinking about it? I says, once in a while you do. You sit down and you just think about it. How the hell did they get down here? And we're trying to get where they are. We'll never get there where they are. You can't plan an outing just to see these machines. You got to end up seeing them by accident, like I did. Well, by accident. What do you mean by accident? Well, I was swathing here, and I come along, I was going to turn the swath around, and the fetal nerve sitting there. They're sitting right in my path. How can I turn around? Is this all true? Well, I said, if it's a lie, I said, you can expect to see something else coming up if it's a lie. And they said, if it's a lie, you'll have to call the RCMP liars then. Oh, the RCMP is involved. I said, you better believe it. I said, there's not just me. There's United States. The Air Force come flying in with 6 planes, aircrafts, which flew over the slough from every angle, taking pictures. And I says, well, the Canadian Air Force was in there. The Navy was in there. The Army was in there. Now, well, who are you going to call liars here? You think it was a lie? I don't think so. Because your eyes don't deceive you, you know. That's what I saw. I saw. What you don't have to believe me. I don't care what you believe. But what I saw was real. I says, when you were sitting on the swather and it does not move off the spot, there's something got to be haywire here. I wouldn't want to go through it again, never again. Because your bones, they ache like you had electrical shock. My joints, I couldn't move hardly. For about 2 weeks, it bothered me.
So what do you think, Thomas?
Nice video. I mean, credible, so freaking credible. I mean, and just the way he talks about everything, how he remembered the events, and the way he interspersed, you know, the events of what took place with the UFO with other family things and other people, and just the whole thing just flowed too freaking well. And then the pictures and everything of the evidence, I give it a 10 out of 10. I mean, there's just too much stuff, and the radiation was the kicker.
Yeah, and the fact that all those officials supposedly knew what they were doing, were crawling around on those spots with dogs and checking out the grass that was impacted down, and they were walking in the radiation.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's any follow-up reports on radiation sickness with those officers or anyone in the Canadian Navy or military. I don't know why the Canadian Navy would be there, but I can understand the Air Force and whatnot. But I wonder.
Yeah, the Navy, though, we got to remember UFOs are going to be a majority of their bases are going to be where humans can't go, and that's the bottom of the ocean. So why is the Navy involved? Why is the Navy involved in the U.S. for all this?
Well, it could be that the Canadian Navy could be also in charge of their intelligence.
Yeah.
It could be, considering the U.S. Navy is in charge of most UFO activity in the United States.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, that could very well be, I guess. This is a very credible story, and that's why we brought it out tonight on UFO Man. And I just wanted to get people's opinions. I see in the chat room that everybody's agreeing that this is pretty credible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John says Elmer seemed very believable. I agree, John. Any other comments about this video clip?
This story's been around for a really long time, and the guy really does tell it well. I actually believe him. I think that he experienced this. I mean, you know, you listen to his reflections and his voice and all that. I mean, I think he's telling the truth.
Yeah, he sounded shook up even after 46 years. I mean, this happened 46 years ago when he was, 1974. So he was probably in his 20s.
74.
1974 is when this happened. And so 46 years ago, and he still remembers it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, when you get involved in something like that and you're a part of something, anytime you think back to it, you're there and you just, you know, it's not just a memory. It's a freaking replay of all your senses at the same time.
Sorry, go ahead, Tommy.
It's a life-altering experience is what it is. I mean, when you realize that you're looking at technology that's absolutely exotic to this world. I mean, it just is not produced here. It's not something that we can produce at all.
Right.
It drives it home. It's amazing. Changed my life.
That's what I wanted to mention. Anna said, do you think it was human-made? In 1974, most likely not.
No.
Although, like I said, in 1942, we had the Hanabu and Brill, and they were anti-gravitational discs, and they were operational. That was in 1942. We also had the Flux Liner, which Tommy and I did a live stream on prior to this, that was operational. Mm-hmm. So whether they were man-made or not, according to his description, it doesn't sound like anything that I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. So I would say most likely Tommy is correct that they're not made here.
Yeah. Or they're made in a place that's not just anywhere that's, well, made by man.
Right. Yeah, it may not be intergalactic or interstellar. Exactly. It might be interdimensional or multidimensional. So, who knows? I mean, Stephen Greer, whether you agree with him or not, has come out and said that a lot of ships just seem to pop into being from the ethereal into the physical realm from a different dimension.
Right.
So it could very well be that. But the thing that got me were the rivets. Rivets generally indicate human-made, and I think that's why Anna was mentioning the possibility of human-made.
Right.
Why would they have rivets unless they have the same type of technology we did, and they're just about as advanced as we are? So I don't
have a different level of technology than we have.
They could have been something other than rivets, for that matter. He saw them and associated them with rivets because that's what his brain knew. But they could be sensors. They could be part of the propulsion system, weapons. Who knows?
What do you call it? I'm going to call it the cargo cult. Anything we go ahead and recognize as one particular thing, we're trying to take stuff we understand and normalize it to what we're going and experiencing.
And associate it with something that from our reality, basically.
Absolutely. Right. Great point, Tommy.
That makes sense. That's a good point. Very good point. Okay, our second segment this evening is an encounter with an alleged aggressive group of Sasquatch in North Carolina, disclosed by a lady who was brought in to help a family that was terrorized so badly that they had to leave their home, all their belongings, because there were several home invasions and disturbances in the house, in their car, everything on the property. In fact, they even put boards with nails around their house to try to prevent Sasquatch from coming in. Wow. So let's listen to the video, and let me get it set up here, and you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, here we go.
First of all, I'm just going to say I was never involved with Sasquatch or Bigfoot. I had no knowledge of them. I had never really understood or researched them. I had no reason to. So even though I am an intuitive and do communicate with multidimensional aspects of entities and energies and on other planets and other dimensions like archangels and saints and deities, I had never encountered anything like a Sasquatch or knew anything about them. So until I got a phone call one day in 2015. And my friends, Mary Joyce and Evelyn Gordon, they have a website where they do investigations about people's sightings. And they have a lot of Bigfoot and ET and UFO sightings all in these North Carolina mountains. So I've been working with them for several years, probably since 2012 maybe, about military underground bases, information I knew. So I've been experiencing that and experiencing UFO activity and interdimensional activity and been reporting to them about these things for quite a few years when they called me. And what they did was they called one day, and I was living in Lake Lure area, a couple of hours from where they live. And they said, Mary Joyce called me. She said, Cindy, can you come up and help us? We've been told by our guides that you are the one to assist us. And I said, with what? And she said, well, we need like an interpreter. I said, for who? And she said, the Sasquatch, Bigfoot. And I said, I don't know them. I don't know anything about them. She said, you really don't have to. We've been told by our guides that you're the one to speak to them to help this family. This family is in, kind of a bad place. And I said, well, tell me more. So she only told me a little bit on the phone. It was very hush hush. She didn't want to speak about it over the phone. So she only gave me a little bit of information, but she said, could you come talk to them? And I said, yes. Would you agree? I said, well, sure. And so they said, well, we need help. Can you come? I said, okay. I was living in Lake Lure at the time, 2 hours from them. And I ended up saying, I really don't have any money at this point. I'm kind of looking for a job. They didn't have a place for me to stay up there, but they wanted me to stay for a couple of days. So I said, well, I'm not sure how this will work, but I'll figure it out. I got off the phone, immediately got a call from my friend in California. And she said, I don't know, Cindy, but I need to call you and tell you that there's a lady in North Carolina, I don't know where in the state of North Carolina, who's having a cat emergency. She needs a cat sitter. And I don't know where it is, but maybe you could just check. I know you kind of are free right now. I'll check. 5 minutes from my friend Mary is where this lady was having a cat emergency. But I learned about it from California. So I was like, okay. So I was supposed to go, obviously, and help with this cat that was only 5 minutes away from the ladies that I needed a place to stay. So I went and stayed with this cat. The lady didn't know me, but I just showed up at her house, took care of this cat, and stayed. We went to lunch that afternoon on the way to the people's house, the people's property, to help them. And we stopped in a little town called Dillsboro, North Carolina. And it's a very small little town, and they had just opened a barbecue restaurant, and we were there on the very first day. And we sat down, and the lady manager came over and said, this is our first day, and I hope you're enjoying it. They knew them, they knew the owners, and they, within 20 minutes, offered me a job and a place to live. And I couldn't even pay my rent at that point the next month because I had not sold enough art. So I just said, well, where am I? I don't even know what town I'm in. I guess so. I just took it. I just went with what the universe was sending me. I didn't know. Right. Okay, I'll do it. And so I started work immediately and got an apartment within, just a short distance of the restaurant because I had owned a restaurant before. So I helped them out kind of in a managerial way. So after that, we left the restaurant. I'm like, I don't even know what's going on now. I found a place to stay for the 2 weeks. I found another place to stay for however long I need. It's just taken care of. Like all my issues were like taken care of. as I get closer to these people's house. We're driving, and I'm like, wow, what is happening? I knew what was happening. When you work in the multidimensional fields, everything happens. Quantum fields start collapsing and your reality changes, and you just have to be open to it and say yes. And so I've been doing this for 10 years, and it works for me. So we start pulling up to this property, and I'm told by them in the car a little bit about it. It's a family, a mother and 2 children that live on a property that's maybe about 50 acres of a farm in the Highlands and Cashiers area of North Carolina. It's really gorgeous land. So half the property might be in pasture land and the rest is in woods. And there's caves on the property, as you can see as you drive in. So as we're driving, it was quite a distance drive, maybe 45 minutes or an hour, even from that place, from Dillsboro. And so we started driving, and as we got closer, I could feel the necessity to start speaking to the multidimensional field. And so I've done portal work before, multidimensional work, where you really have to ask permission to enter the field. So I started speaking aloud. Mary's driving, Evelyn's in the back seat, I'm in the front seat, and I started speaking aloud to the multidimensional field that I am here as a mediator. I don't know anything about you, but I'm, willing to be here to help assist you or the family that needs assistance. I didn't know anything else. I'm here in benevolence. That's all I said. Please open the gates to all of us. And as we pulled onto the property, the intensity kind of got serious in the car, and we didn't speak. So it's a long driveway into the property, and there's caves along the side, and there's pasture off to the right. And so we're driving, and Mary and I both glanced to the right at the edge of the road going to the pasture, and we looked and we saw something, and she slammed on her brakes, and we looked, and I already had my hand on the car door to get out of the car, and it was a big black dog that was probably 4 feet tall, sitting on the side of the road, kind of haunched down, and it had, pointy face, really pointy ears, and had huge back legs, like jacked up dog. And we looked, and it had green glowing eyes, and it was see-through. And we both saw it at the same time. And I got out of the car, and she did say, maybe you don't need to get out. Don't get out. And I said, I'm going anyway. I didn't feel fear. And so I just went to the edge of the pasture, and it turned and started bounding down the hill in these huge strides that no dog could have ever taken, like huge strides. And about the 4th stride, just poof, disappeared.
Like how many feet?
I would say maybe 40 feet, it's like 10 feet a jump. It had to be 10, 20 feet that far. It was ridiculous how far. And so I've been aware and been involved in other dimensional activities, so it didn't scare me. I just was like, great. And I just went gatekeeper. I knew it was a gatekeeper. That's all I knew. I've had other gatekeepers in other realms, animal or, dimensional, but this was a gatekeeper. I didn't know anything else.
A Sasquatch gatekeeper, or what kind of a gatekeeper?
I just felt it at that point. See, I'm just telling you what I knew at that point. So at that point, I only knew it as a gatekeeper of the area, because I had asked the area for my, ability to come inside peacefully. So Mary was like, whoa. And Evelyn was like, she didn't see it really. So she wasn't sure, but we were all very serious at that point. And we turned and we started going down the gravel drive and I was looking at the caves on the side. And as we came around the bend, there's a small house on the left and then a larger home on the left. We pulled up to the larger home, got out. The owners were not there. They had vacated the property 2 years ago. They were so scared. They left the house. They left the property.
What happened?
I get out of the car and I look down the hill and it looks like a war zone. And what I was told before we got there was this family had a problem 2 years earlier, where her friend, who's also her bodyguard from some domestic violence type situation, was helping in the yard. And there's a pond on the property. They were jackhammering into the side of the dam, and they went through bedrock, and the pond started flooding this area. Well, the next day, they didn't think anything about it, you know.
What area did it flood?
The area around the pond, like it just eroded this area by the dam wall.
That was underneath?
Yeah, underneath it. It just exposed this whole area that was obviously a cave, but the water exposed all this and the mud. So they immediately saw that it was a cave, and they immediately saw that there were artifacts in the cave. That's all they knew at that point. And they, you know, told me, this is what Evelyn told me. At that point, they just went back home, and the next day there were hairy handprints, hairy footprints, mud everywhere, all over their Suburban, just covered all over their cars, and then all over their other vehicles. And then later built up to the small house that they were staying in. And so they got scared like immediately. And so that's why the bodyguards started carrying guns everywhere, every day.
Mud handprints and footprints?
Huge handprints and footprints that scared the hell out of them. And they even got inside the car with mud and hair and smell all over the front of the house.
So the cars had been left open?
The cars had not been left open. Maybe the key was not in it or anything, but I think they got into the cars at some point. So there was a lot of mischief that went on for a while, right? And the family left. I didn't get too much information because they wanted me to be the interpreter of what had happened, right? So they only told me that the family got scared from this dam break, that they took some artifacts out, and then the Sasquatch went everywhere and got angry. So they were scared and left the property. 2 years later, I'm asked to come in.
Did they know it was a Sasquatch?
They knew that it was a Sasquatch.
How did they know?
Because she didn't go into much detail with me, but she has known that they've been on her property as long as she's been on the property, which has been a long time since the childhood. It's a family property. Mm-hmm. She didn't own it outright, but she did have possession at that time.
Right.
So because she knew who it was.
So she'd seen them.
She had seen them.
Well, interesting. And she didn't publicize it?
No. She was actually afraid to speak it because she felt that someone would come and harm them. So she was very hesitant to talk to Mary. It took years for her to even get the gumption to talk to Mary.
Well, she must have felt that they were not threatening.
At one point, she thought they were non-threatening the whole time. But after this occurrence, it scared them to death. They feared for their life every day after that dam break. And because there were ETs also involved, gray aliens.
Did they know that she was watching them?
Yes, absolutely every day. They made themselves known to her every day.
Obviously.
On the property. She showed me pictures and flip phone pictures on her laptop and her flip phone of a gray alien walking across the pasture each day with 2 Sasquatch babies. Now, this sounds absolutely crazy what she showed me, but I saw this with my eyes. This woman was scared to death to even show them to us. She showed them to us and then put them away. She didn't want the aliens to even know that she was outing this thing.
So she did take photographs, but she's not releasing those.
She would not release them to Mary or me or
probably
else.
Anybody.
No.
Because she doesn't want to jeopardize.
Yes, or herself. Because what happened, I'll go into in a second what happened when I went down after I got to the property, because I'm going into the whole story now, but of what really happened. But so I pulled up to the property, right? And they weren't there yet. So I didn't have all this background story. All I had was this activity at the house that scared them away 2 years ago. What the hell? We need to remedy this. They're scared to death to even come here. So I get out of the car. I look down to this war zone that looks like They had just, you know, devastated this cave pond area. And I immediately started walking down.
What
to the
were
pond.
they trying to build down there? I mean,
They were
the heavy
fixing, all
equipment?
they were doing was fixing the dam.
Oh,
So they had big, huge drills to drill into the dam, jackhammers, tarps.
and it broke something.
It broke the wall to the pond, and it flooded
The underground habitat.
the underground habitat of the cave
Yeah.
that the Sasquatch lived in, their home.
Amazing.
It opened up their home. It devastated their home and flooded their home. I didn't know all this. They didn't realize what they had truly done. They didn't know this was their home. They didn't know that the Sasquatch had lived right there. They knew that they had activity all over the property, but they didn't know that they devastated the home space. Okay. So when I saw the war zone, I immediately started walking down. Now that we're still very tense at this point, you know, after seeing the dogman, because you don't know at this point what interdimensional activity could happen. I'm very open to any and all activity. And so anything can show itself to me, you know, and so I have no fear of going down to the pond area. I just knew that I needed to go. So I went down, and when I go into an area that I'm going to speak to an interdimensional being or entity, you have to speak often in their language or in their resonance or tone or frequency. So I immediately had to tone into the woods, and that's just toning through my mouth sounds. And I didn't know what I was doing. I've never really known when I toned what I was doing. I was never taught this. It's just something that comes natural. If you're going to match the frequency, that your body has to match it too.
And when that happens, what happens?
It's almost that you open the auric field, the portal of yourself to reach that dimension, and that dimension to reach you. It's almost like communication is open. So I can do that in other ways, but this way was the most calming and clearing and honorable, because I've learned that you must go into any dimension with honor, especially the Sasquatch. I felt such like elder knowledge. They feel like, if you've ever been with a Native American elder, just the wisdom, or even a Chinese elder, the wisdom that they hold, that's phenomenal. So this is what I felt there.
That's the first thing you felt?
Oh yeah. Walking down there, I just felt this, like almost court was being held. You know, it's like, okay. And so I'm toning into the woods, and really what the tone was kind of matching was, I'm here in honor of you, and I'm here as witness. Please just gift me information so that I may help you. That's all I had in my mind and my intention. So as I'm singing this tone, in tones, just some type of song that I've never knew about, immediately I got the information in 1 second, 2 seconds, 1 millisecond.
Like a bulk download?
In my head, the whole story. And I got the emotion with it. Immediately in my body, I felt sadness. Very much sadness. And for how humans work. Like, it wasn't just like what this family did to us. It was like bigger than that. It was like how humans work. Just look at this. This is how humans work.
How they work, meaning?
How they dishonor.
Dishonor.
Yeah. It was mostly about honor. Honoring your brother. It was more along what it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Compassion for your brother.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was immediately thrown into anger as a feeling. I felt every bit of rage that 2 of those beings were holding. There were 5 beings that were coming into me as immediate understanding. There were 3 adults and 2 babies. And so I didn't know about the babies before that. I didn't know about any of that before. As I'm sitting down here toning,
mm-hmm.
I got that immediately. There were babies and 3 adults.
Did you see it in your mind's eye, or how did that knowledge come?
How it works with me is kind of, I feel things into existence, into the visual. Like the visual comes after the feeling of knowing it. And this is an immediate feeling of knowing. Like there's no way I can alter what I've just been given. Here it is. This is the doctrine. This is like the book. You were just gifted the book.
A book
It felt like a book,
of?
the story of what happened.
Okay.
So I immediately said, what happened here? And they said, they flooded our home. They flooded our home. They flooded our home, our babies, our peacefulness. And I immediately saw a vision of this underground area with, what somewhat Flintstone-ish looking environment. They have somewhat of a sentience, like an animal that would have consciousness. So how would an animal decorate their area with like a leaf that's pretty, or something colorful, in the corner? It's exactly what it was. Light streaming in certain areas and not in others. Piles of bedding. I could just see the vision of the place that it was before it got flooded. And there were artifacts in there. And so immediately I knew the story that there was something that they took. What did you take from them?
The owners of the property?
Yeah, what did you take? It was huge in my mind. What did you take? So that was rolling through my head. And then all of a sudden I was taken into, what did they give you? They told me they gave them a gift. Ask her what we gave her. Okay, that's it. And so thank you. They, that's all it was, but many thanks about being there. And that was it. The story was gifted.
But they said, ask her what?
Ask her what we gave her.
What does that mean? Ask her.
So after I left the area and I came up to talk to Mary and Evelyn before the owner got there, I said, first of all, I'm angry as hell and I need to breathe for a few minutes. And I was agitated and I was shaking a little because it was a lot of information and a lot of energy that came to me quickly. And, your body has to kind of come back down from being in an interdimensional space like that. So I went off by myself for a minute and breathed until they came back. And then I met them. And I'll call her Samantha because she remains anonymous to this day, because this was a dramatic thing for them. So when they came, we immediately sat down on the porch. We didn't go in the house or anything. She didn't show me anything. She didn't really tell me anything. I was so agitated, I immediately just went into what I was told.
Right.
And
to the owner.
To the owner and her bodyguard boyfriend.
Oh.
So when they got out of the car, I didn't mention that he was wearing, a handgun on his hip and a big shotgun.
Well,
I mean, whoa. Okay, so now I know immediately where they stand. Complete fear.
Man.
They were afraid to be on that property. Yeah. They couldn't believe I walked down to that area. They have not stepped foot there. He comes there every day to shoot guns to scare them away. So they got out. We sat on the porch, all four of us. She introduced us. And she said, Cindy's here, to bring you a message. And I just said, you broke into their home. And she said, what? I said, that was their home place. She goes, oh my God. And I said, what did you take of theirs? And she went, oh.
She knew.
She got up, she walked inside, and she brought me, she wouldn't touch anything. She asked me to come inside. And I looked, and we opened the front door to the family room, and it's filled with rocks. All the ledges of the furniture, everything had boxes and boxes of rocks, buckets of artifacts that they had pulled out of this cave. So after it flooded, they apparently had come out and just were fascinated with these stones, the frequency of the stones, everything about the stones. Well, I love stones. I know the frequency of stones. I've worked with stones for a while. I walked through and I knew these stones were not from here. Most of them weren't. They were electromagnetic. They were radiation. They had microwave, energy. And she was afraid to touch any of them. And I said, why? And she had her hand like this the whole time.
Right, like she was holding her hand?
Yeah. She never let me see her hand. And I said, why won't you touch the rocks? And she pulled her hand away and showed me. Her hand was deformed.
From what?
From touching one of those rocks. She got a radiation microwave burn so deep inside that it crushed the bones and burnt from the inside her hand.
And how does she know that came from the rock that
Because
came out of the cave?
It was immediate. When she touched the rock, it burnt her.
Did she go to emergency?
She did end up in an emergency room.
Wow.
I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. It was that dramatic.
Yeah.
But, so I was like, okay. So I said, well, now I can touch these. And so I did. They don't bother, but didn't bother me.
Why did you feel like you could?
It's almost like I had permission. She didn't, because what she did to them, I didn't do to them. I didn't rape that cave, that home, that sacred space.
Interesting.
And so I knew then. So then we went back outside. She goes, we'll go back in and show you more later. But we went back outside to talk, and because my message was not over, because all I did was ask her one question. What did you take? Whole house full of rocks. Come back outside. And she says, I said, well, now what did they give you? She goes, oh my God. She got up again, walked to the front door, and came back with a little piece of burlap that had kind of like red dye around the edges. And it had some really bright colored stones and some blue colored looking stones and like a piece of moss or something. And they had gifted this to her like months after they had tried to get in the house. And after they had gotten in the house, it was an apology. We're sorry. This is how we had to speak to you.
Yeah. Interesting.
It was a complete like ceremonial apology.
But did it look handmade?
Yes. Like they had taken berries or something to stain the edges and they ripped it just in a perfect circle. And, it was like.
Was it like a forgiveness offering?
Absolutely.
That happened how many months after the.
I don't know the exact time frame. I'd have to go back to that, but it was pretty far after. It wasn't immediate. It was pretty far after they had already been inside the home and scared the family away. Yeah. It was almost like they realized, that we scared them so bad out of here that they've never returned.
Yeah.
So it might have been a while later.
Okay.
So after I told them that, and told them the story, that I knew that what needed to happen now was to honor them. And what needed to happen was a ceremony of honor back to them and gifting back all the stones, every one of them, and to make a mound right where the devastation happened and gift it all back with gifts of your own, fruit, like a fruit and I think roasted chicken, I think I said, because that's what I figured they would want.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they did. So they told me they did that later, but that was what my message was to them. So after that, they said, okay, they were very thankful. We went and took me in the house. This is where I was absolutely amazed is what I saw.
Now again, this is how many months after?
2 years.
2 years after it happened. No one's been pretty much in the house.
No.
And you're walking in and looking around.
Looking around the house. So I'm in the living room with stones and the rocks and everything they had taken. And the only thing that's like totally out of place in this room other than the rocks is this one little white, looking like a communion dress of an 8-year-old, 6-year-old kid. And it was one of the little girls from the little girls' room upstairs. They had brought it downstairs and laid it right out on the couch with all this muddy handprints and hair all over it. Like they had just touched it and been all over that. dress. Like they just enamored that dress.
But they didn't try to put it on or anything like that.
Maybe they did. But it wasn't crumpled and ruined. It was almost honored. It was like laid out real nice.
Interesting.
You know, odd. So then we start to go upstairs because nothing had really happened downstairs. I said, well, first place I would go as a Sasquatch, I think would be the kitchen. No. They had cans of food and chips and stuff. No, nothing. Did not touch it. They were not there for food. They were there to communicate a message. So they went upstairs to the little girl's room, not the little boy's room, but the little girl's room. And they found, now this family left, you know, all of a sudden in one day and at one day. So everything's still there. There's kids' clothes, there's everything, just books and everything. So the crayons and everything were just strewn everywhere around the room because the Sasquatch had taken the markers and the crayons and drawn all over the walls. And so some of these photos show faces and some show like lines of where land would be and like a circle under it where a cave might be and rushing water and then a big X. They were telling the story of what had happened to this family. But it was to the point where the family was so scared they could not receive the message.
Yeah.
So that's why I was brought in to explain this to them. I would never have known anything about it. So after that, they said, would you like one of these stones? I said, yes. And I asked, would they allow me to have a stone? Would you care if I had a stone? And they said, no, take a stone. So I took an awesome stone that I still have today. And so I left. We left. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, I got a phone call that said, the family had done what you asked, and they are at peace. That all things stopped on the land. They took up, I didn't tell you, there were 2x4s strewn all around both houses with nails that the owners had put up, you know, all over to keep the Sasquatch away from the house.
To keep them away.
Yeah. So they had taken all that away. They had repaired the area. They gave a ceremony. They honored, you know, the presence. They apologized for the unknowing action.
Yeah.
You know, because they were benevolent to each other, had been for years, but they got scared. So fear brought them into this, you know, stealing the artifacts. And so once they gifted all that back, everything went fine. So the family was good and happy. And they even contacted me about maybe a month after that and asked me to come back out because they thought they found an ancient Sasquatch burial space. And so they asked me to come there and what would I do if I went there? So I taught them how to ask permission of a space. I sat in the woods with them for about 4 or 5 hours. No guns, pure peace. I taught them to tone into the woods. I taught them to speak and ask permission. And they feel protected and very peaceful now. So I haven't had any communication with them since then.
Wow.
But, you know, it was a very interesting. So after this event, the day after I got back to civilization and I looked on Google, I had no idea what I had just experienced. Is there such a thing? And I wanted to be validated. I'm a human, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just Googled like expert, Bigfoot expert. So this man's name comes up. His name is Kawani Lasperitis. And Kawani lives in a very small town in Washington State. That is the same town as one of my very best friends called Chewelah, Washington. Well, that was a great synchronicity to me that my best friend lived in the same little town as him. So I just decided I was going to call him and say, what the hell just happened to me? So I called him and he answered. And he was gracious enough to have a conversation with me. But this man is had 60 years of research. He's had, you know, communication with Sasquatch clans, even in writing. They learned to write enough so that he could communicate. So I was talking to what I felt was the foremost expert on the earth of Sasquatch.
Well, you saw a number of unusual things. How did he respond?
Well, like it happens every day. It was no big deal to him. I said to him, you know, I saw this dog and it was like this big pointy eared thing, but it had glowed green eyes. He goes, oh, that's a dogman.
He knew?
A dogman, yeah. It has a name. And I'm like, a dogman? What's that? He goes, oh, it's a guardian. It's a guardian animal, like an interdimensional animal that guards where the Sasquatch live. And I went,
it matched up exactly with what you saw?
And the information I got, remember I told you that very minute I saw it, I heard and felt the word gatekeeper. That was all I knew, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, that matches up. And I said, so I met this lady and I you know, went down and toned and I had this like telepathic communication with this instant story of the whole thing. And I even felt the anger and the sadness. Of course, they speak to you telepathically. He was just like, just don't you see? This is how it works. I'm like, okay.
This is your first introduction to an expert.
Yeah, in the first 5 minutes of the conversation. I'm like, okay. So then, you know, and this like goes against what my rational mind would even tell me. I never believed in that. So complete believer when you work in the dimensional fields of anything you might see or feel like that. So he says, I said, well, you know, this is what happened. And so I communicated and he goes, you know, I was actually concerned at that point that the Sasquatch had nowhere to go,
Right.
you know, and he said to me, do not, he felt my concern. He's very intuitive. And he said, do not even spend 1 minute worrying about a Sasquatch and where they're going to live. They will find a place to be and it's not your concern. I mean, that was really clear to me. I was okay. And then I told him that, you know, there was this strange occurrence of an ET and what's with the gray alien? And have you ever heard of that? He goes, have you ever read my book? And I was like, no, it may even have that in the title, you know, that Greys and Sasquatch are buddies and they hang together. And this is part of the deal. Dogmen, Sasquatch, and aliens.
And multiple people have seen that.
All over the world. All over the world. So I started becoming in communication with people and communicating with people who had experienced it all over the world. And I was quite impressed with the continual story being the same in every culture. They have a name in every culture and have for ages.
And the behavior matches up?
Behavior matches up. Yes, there are clans that are angry. They're just like humans. They're sentient beings. Some hold anger, some hold joy.
So would they be more aggressive then? Or?
I've never experienced that, and I have experienced more Sasquatch after this telepathically.
Really?
Yes. They started working with me quite heavily after that for a couple of years.
Cool.
And so now I know how that works, and so I know when I'm being communicated with. But before that, I didn't really understand it until this, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's next, do you think? What was your last communication, if I might ask?
My last communication was kind of on a personal level. That's the way they started working with me. When I was asking the universe for guidance, I asked for it to happen on an earthly level. And I started getting a lot of people that I felt were related to Sasquatch, but in human form. I felt they were inner earth beings that were showing up, and it happened for almost 2 years. They showed up to speak to me, to be around me, to show their presence. Very unusual activity, but it was always benevolent and kind of guiding voices. And they would even leave items I would lose, you know, in the house or something. I would find them on the dashboard of my car, in my locked car, over and over.
Very unlikely places for them to have.
An earring on the dashboard of my car, a stone, a little crystal, you know, a 50-cent piece, just weird stuff on the dashboard of my car. And then after that, they would have little sticks in shapes. I'm very visual person, so I see geometry everywhere. Well, if sticks are in a shape, I'm going to see it. And I don't ever see something like this, but there would be like triangles within triangles. There would be arrows. There would be all kinds of things.
Made out of what again?
Sticks.
Sticks.
At my car, right at my car door, over and over and over for 2 years.
And did you interpret the significance?
You know, I think I would, at some point I did. It was almost comical. It was almost like, see, we can communicate
I see.
in any form with you.
Mm-hmm.
And this was showing me that they're three-dimensional
Mm-hmm.
in action, but multidimensional in essence. So we could call on them to come in an earthly fashion, or we can call on them to come in a, astral fashion.
So then sometimes they can manifest in physical.
Absolutely.
And then
They're the masters of kind of the technology, and they teach a lot of people on Earth how to disappear.
So is that like dematerialized,
Yes.
or is it just what happens when you move out of third density into fourth or fifth?
Which I believe is the same. I think it's all the same. You dematerialize. They know how to dematerialize the whole 3D body into a consciousness plane beyond plasma, beyond matter. They become consciousness, telepathic frequency.
And this is perhaps why they're so elusive.
Yes. And because they can view all timelines simultaneously, they understand the plight of humans. They come from, other spaces of time, and they understand what the plight of human is. And I really feel like they're here to teach us brotherly love, that they're here. And this is something that comes across in all the people that communicate across the world, who teach them, that Sasquatch teach them through telepathic means what it is humanity is looking for and what they could focus on. And it's the same message across the world, and it's brotherly love and taking care of each other and being aligned with our divineness and our uniqueness.
So does it sound to you like there's an openness to at some point have a close encounter? And
I think yes. And I wonder how that's going to happen, because, there's still the faction of beings on the earth that want to go hunt one down and, and like hang it upside down and just prove it. And then there's another person that wants to have the DNA to prove it. And then there's the other person that knows they're here and is just communicating with them as an essence, just like as someone would believe that a fairy is here, even though there is evidence of them.
Maybe things on the planet are going to have to settle down a little bit before that can happen.
I think consciousness has to be more agreeable.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we're in a phase of time, I think, where we're being divided continually. And so our mind's divided until we become more allowing to other dimensions. It's not going to be as open.
Right.
But we're moving there quickly, I think. A lot of people on the earth are getting more and more communication with these interdimensional beings. And these are our closest relatives to the dimension. And so it's natural they would be the first contact for us.
They're our closest relatives to what? To what dimension?
To an earthly dimension, in a cosmic way. Like our cosmic presence shown here on Earth is shown as a Sasquatch. As it's almost like we have the same DNA, but it's a higher cosmic awareness of simultaneous life in one body. That's why it's such ancient wisdom. Even in the babies, you feel it.
Do you feel there's anything right now that might be wanting to come through from Sasquatch to just a message or anything for people who might have stumbled onto this interview?
Well, I unlike others, I don't know about others, but a lot of people do have communication in a way that's one-on-one with a Sasquatch, one being, and they know their name and they know what clan they've come from. And I don't get messages like that. I get collective messages. So it's almost like there's a council of Sasquatch that come to me or a group, and I get the whole group's information coming from like one voice. So it's not one person, it's the collective that tells me what's happening. So the continual message that I have felt since I started working with them or opened up that portal to information with them is that if humanity doesn't come into an awareness of their own brotherly love, of treating others like you would treat yourself, and being kind and loving in the heart, they have their energy fields, to me, are huge in the heart space. I see and feel energy. So when I think of them as a collective, I feel the heart space really strongly. And so the messages feel so heartfelt, the information, the resonating frequency with them feels very benevolent, you know, like you would be with a saint, or you would be in the presence of complete benevolence, you know, kindness. And so it's an interesting level of love for an existence that you never knew existed, one, but then to have such a deep like connection to the ancientness of yourself. Like I felt a part of me in them, and I felt a part of them in me.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Not like I had in any other, well, I have had in several other dimensional aspects that I feel very much like that, but or resonated with it. But this I resonated with a lot with. So I must have had some type of past with it that I feel like in some past life, understood it, had communication with them. I was so easily accepted that I guess I wasn't surprised by it, but it's kind of still kind of awesome that it happened, that they just so openly accepted the communication.
Yeah.
But their messages are always benevolent. I've never had an angry interchange, even though I felt the anger within them. I didn't process the anger as a lash out on anyone. It was almost an internal anger, you know? And so I never felt a fear about talking with them or communicating with them, even though there might have been one of them or two of them that held some fear.
And when you feel into that energy, you're feeling into what you described as a collective voice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, interesting.
I would, like I said, I would never have thought I would have been involved in anything like this or believed it, you know. So that's why I'm kind of doing this video, is that people that I normally would have talked to would have thought I was crazy. I had flipped my mind. And there will be people that watch this video that think that now, past colleagues of mine, but not when I've been validated from across the world with as many people, you know, that have corroborated the same experience that I've had. You know, does it come true to me?
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thanks for listening.
Hey, what a honor, really, to hear something like this firsthand. For someone who's experienced it, especially as deeply as you have experienced it.
And I wanted to share that part about it. It's not about the sighting of it or, you know, the fascination of what they did to the house or the painting, the drawings on the walls, or the stones. It's more about the fact that we as humans can communicate with any dimension if we ask permission and honor that dimension. And that's the only time humanity is going to kind of help itself, because they have technology and they have, you know, huge brotherly love that we can all, you know, utilize, be a part of.
So what did you think about that, Thomas?
Oh boy, it's what not to think about it. How about you, Tommy?
Not sure I'm going for it. I'll be honest with you.
No. Oh my God, it's reminds me of a disaster called My Ex-Wife. That's it, you know, could they just talk and tell really good stories, but it's just too much details in the wrong area.
And then the UFOs came, and then the Greys came, and then all this happened.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm going to back up, Cindy Carter, because what I'm going to say is this. UFO sightings have been spotted in the same area as Bigfoot sightings.
Yeah.
And so the interaction between maybe alien greys and Bigfoot could possibly be a possibility.
Yeah.
How she actually knows that as fact, I don't know. That's kind of subjective.
Yeah.
But in regards to her being,
I am one of those. I think we call them a know-it-all.
Okay, but in regards to her being an intuitive, being that Occam mentioned in the chat, that Bigfoots and Sasquatches are known by the tribal communities to be of a telepathic nature.
Yeah. I mean,
so if that's the case, maybe they can communicate through intuition.
Yeah, and they've got pictures of them too. Just recently, you know, was it December of 2019 up in Lake James, North Carolina? They've got pictures of them. They've been showing up, so it's not like they're not around. They're not in the news, and they're even going in the particular area where they saw them. It's what is it? The mountain swamp known for Bigfoot sightings is being saved by conservationists. So they're even trying to save the land where they're being sighted at this point. So it's, you know, I can definitely see it's something North Carolina holds dear to the population.
Right. She even said that before she went to help out that family, they had slabs of wood all around the house with nails sticking up to prevent the Bigfoot from coming in her house. There was evidence shown in the video of handprints, muddy handprints on the walls. Now, I don't know too much about the drawing. I really don't know if I accept that. But in regards to the, and how would they know to use crayons? That kind of bothered me. But in regards to the handprints on the car, the hair that they found, the odor in the house and inside their car, that all goes along with actual Sasquatch sightings.
Right, but if they had hair, you know, you have to think of like Brian Forrester. You know, he's an amateur, you know, ufologist as well, and ancient alien theorist, and he goes and looks at the stuff, and they get the ancient hairs from different stuff, and they get DNA analysis on them, especially if you have some kind of evidence. Freaking take it and use it. Just don't say, hey, I've got a hair, but I've got a hair, and look, it's not from a freaking human either.
But they didn't even touch the hair. They were so terrorized by what happened to their house, the invasion upon their privacy, the invasion on their house and their livelihood, their life, that they just ran. They left all their stuff in the house and took off. They hadn't been there for 2 years. So when Cindy Carter was brought in, she was brought in to help them out. Now, whether you subscribe to the idea that she has the ability to communicate telepathically with Bigfoot, that's neither here nor there. The point is after she went in there and did whatever she does, the activity on the property stopped, and they are able to resume their lives and go back to their house. So something happened.
Yeah.
You know, when they put the fruit out there by where the the homestead for the Sasquatch was, where they broke through when they were jackhammering the dam.
Right, the top of
flooded with the water. Right. When they put the fruit in there, it was almost like a sacrificial offering.
Yeah.
And I've heard there's a couple organizations online. There's the Bigfoot Research Organization, BFRO. They're pretty credible. And then another channel called Thinker Thunker. And if you go on either one of those channels, they talk about putting fruit and like pumpkins and gourds and squash out in the woods as an offering for Bigfoot, and they
Yeah.
will eat them. They will eat them. They'll disappear. Now, whether other animals are eating it, that's possible too.
Well, the story definitely begs more exploration. If they know where that cave is, you know,
Sure.
go into it, find out what's there.
Excavate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they actually did find more things inside that cave. I mean, besides those rocks, they found crystals, and they found shards of pottery, and they found like, you know how those stick structures are associated with Bigfoot. We're talking the teepee type crossed wood, you know? They found those all around the property. There's a lot of activity. So whether this is a legitimate story or not, I cannot prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt. But I would say I'm leaning toward believing this lady, personally.
I'm on the fence today.
I hear you. Okay, well, we had to go there because we were expanding our program to include cryptids and UFOs. But in regards to this one, the one thing that I'm on the fence about is the Dogman. I've heard of the Beast of Bray Road, which is in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Which is a Dogman sighting, or a group of sightings.
Right.
But she was referring to a transparent one at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, she's got a lot of experience dealing with a lot of different dimensional beings from all over the place. So,
well, that was kind of subjective in my mind. I'm on the fence about that. But in regards to the Dogman, the last one, when she was talking to that expert, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's a guardian, that's a gatekeeper." Now I've heard that.
Yeah.
And I've heard about people seeing Dogmen.
Right. That's when she was going and basically trying to classify what type, you know, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, the Dogman stuff. Yeah, it was, I guess, you know, she's just trying to take and understand stuff and relate it to the information she knows, I guess. But it was an interesting call.
Right. Yeah, when she talked to the experts, that helped out her case a little bit. But if it was just all her subjective viewpoint, then I would say, Thomas, that I would agree with you. And Tommy, I would agree with you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going into our third segment of the evening. We're going to show some UFO videos.
It's what we've all been waiting for. Come on, Tim.
We haven't done that in a long time.
Absolutely.
Here's one. It's an odd sphere UFO filmed over Tokyo, Japan. Let me bring it up. Okay. Got to get it ready here. Okay, let me make it big. Here you go.
いや、ほら。六角形なんだ。真ん中。本当あれよ。
そうなんじゃない？
点かな。横に四角い模様ができた。ね。二つ。
これどこじゃ？どっか行っちゃった。はい。
近づいてる。
運転にしても随分。
これ大きいや。六角形なんだ。
これ以上。
真ん中に点が出た。本当あれよ。
そうなんじゃない？
六角形なんだ。
Definitely looks metallic.
Yeah. It looks like it's opening ports.
Yeah. you know, for being low resolution video, it's still pretty freaking detailed in what we're seeing. It's amazing.
Well, it's Japan. They get the best cameras on the planet.
Okay, I don't know what that was, but it was really detailed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was over Tokyo, Japan. Yeah, let's see here.
Freaking working. What the hell?
Okay, here's another one. It's a huge ring UFO spotted in front of Mount Fuji, Japan. Here we go.
怪しいね。何？ちょっと怖いよ。なんだろう。なんだろう。怖いよ。ちょっと変なもんだね。なんだろう。怖いよ。UFO みたいなもんだけど、ロケットみたいなもん。なんか消えてきたけど。うわー、すごいね。
It's either like a disc or it's something you just.
消えてしまった。
Wow, it's cool. Different.
だね。
Like a ring or something.
It's gravitational distortion almost looks like. Just, you know, it's like we're seeing something that they don't want us to see.
Yeah, somebody suggested that it might be a burp, you know, a smoke burp from the actual volcano in Mount Fuji, but I think it's too far away.
Yeah. It almost has like refraction and stuff going on it too from the stuff around it.
Right.
Yeah. If it were smoke, it'd be dissipating by now as well.
Yeah.
And it's staying there for a long time. And look how far away it is from the actual volcano.
なんだろう。怖いよ。UFO みたいなもんだけど、ロケットみたいなもん。なんか消えてきたけど。うわー、すごいね。すごいね。消えてしまった。
See my freaking camera.
終わったね。
Oops, sorry. Okay, next one. Okay, check this out. Black oval UFOs passed by a chemtrail plane over Baja, Southern California. Here we go. Hey guys, it's UFO Man. Here's a clip showing a man filming a chemtrail plane spraying over Southern California. And as it's flying by, you see two black objects pass in front of the jet. Actually, I think they're passing below the jet. And at first I thought they might be birds, but when I zoomed in, you could tell that they're black oval objects, keeping an equal distance from each other in their flight path. Check it out, make an assessment, let me know what you think. I'll zoom in a little more so you can look at them.
Definitely not birds. But then again, we're talking the digital zoom camera. So
here's the second look of the original bit of footage. So that you never know. See the actual speed. I've also slowed it down so you can see them past the jet. And I've enlarged it. So take a last look. Let me know what you think. And put your comments below. And as always, thank you for watching. They're actually passing below the jet.
Yeah.
They're not really passing next to it.
Right.
It's hard to tell what the distance is based on the camera. All right, there's that one. What do you think of that one, Tommy?
Well, definitely something there, but there again, with the digital cameras the way they are, And like we've discussed before, a lot of times when a camera sees something that it can't necessarily interpret, it'll just do its best. And those could have been birds that the camera was doing that to. And then again, they could have been solid objects cruising across there. I mean, it's really hard to say.
Right. Here's an oval white UFO passing over a wind farm near Highway 62 in Southern California on October 13th, 2020. You can kind of see it in the distance, like right here, right there. Now I will zoom in so you can get a real close-up look at it.
Checking out the wind farm.
Now somebody suggested it might be a low-flying drone that inspects the wind farm, but I looked at it really, really close, and to me it just looks like an oval. You're going to have to take a good look at it.
It's too big for it. I mean, it would be more like a dirigible than it would be a freaking drone if it was, you know, that size.
Right, but there's no control center on it. There's no tail fins, nothing.
Nothing.
And it appears to land, but it doesn't land. It's just going down behind that hill where the fans are. You'll see it.
Yeah, so think about that. It's even farther away than everything else, and look how big it is.
Right. And I will get closer to it so that you can take a good look at it. Renee, we're going to get closer to it. You're correct, Justin. We don't know what the secret space program has, but it seems a little odd to me that they would be out by a wind farm.
Yeah.
But then again, you never know.
Trying to watch. It's on an angle there. It's kind of going and just slowly moving through the area. That must be nice just to take this thing and stabilize the image.
I will in a second here.
Oh, I know. I'm just
see how it seems to be dropping down below the hill?
Yeah, it's slowly going down, sinking.
I think it's just passing behind the hill.
Yeah.
Now, there's a close-up of it. That's what it looks like close up.
Right.
Now, here's zoomed in a little bit.
Turn around.
You don't want to hear that. Is it me, or is there a little tilt up and down on the craft? So as it's moving along, you almost see like it's wobbling a little bit.
Yes, I noticed that too.
Yeah.
But you can see kind of a dark energy field around it. Do you see that?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It could also be from the camera because it's a really light object and it's trying to do a contrast between the image and the stuff behind it. But there's something there.
Yep, I agree.
Like Tommy said, the camera can really distort things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right there is some distortion.
Yeah, it's just image compression. You can only get so much out of the the pixel space that you're going for. You can see as it came across into that one area, in the darker area, the image just kind of popped out because the JPEG compression wasn't going in.
Right. Look how big it is, though.
Yeah.
It's pretty sizable.
It is. I mean, probably have to say, based on the size of it, it's probably, longer than or as long as one of the blades on No, it's, you know, tip to tip, maybe across two blades. I guess it depends on the windmill, but
Yeah, that was, in my opinion, a pretty credible piece of footage.
60, 80 feet across, maybe.
Yeah, I have no idea how big that was, but it was something different. What'd you think, Tommy?
Definitely something there for sure. As to what it was, I couldn't say, but moving really slow. And drones, I don't know, they probably move a little faster than that. That was just, I don't know, that's a definite maybe.
Okay, I'm going to play this one. It's a shimmering orb UFO outside of Tijuana, Mexico on 10/17/2020. Here we go.
Mira, ve, güey, cómo se ve todo pixeleado.
Güey, estaba suspendida acá, güey. ¿Por qué no lo haces con tu celular, si el celular no?
That looks interesting. When you've got the, why would you want to look at the jet? Go back on the UFO. Come on.
I think they're just showing that there's a jet. Now I'll get closer so you can see it.
Yeah.
Mira, ve, güey, cómo se ve todo pixeleado.
Güey, estaba suspendida acá, güey. ¿Por qué no lo haces con tu celular, si el celular no?
It's like it's shimmering.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell is it? It's just the lighting on it. It's, you know, the lighting is directly coming.
Yep.
You know, like that. It's just you almost, you know, there's almost like a smoke kind of going above it. You know, trailing behind it. It's just kind of there, going kind of like a gray disturbance, just a little bit to the top of it.
Right
there, yeah. And it's coming away from the craft, and it looks like in a real effect.
Okay, here's some stills.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Right there.
And you can see how it trails away up and to the right behind it, that purple kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's just weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I would have loved to see it in IR to see what kind of stuff is really there, because there's some stuff we just don't see.
Right. This one here is an unknown object gets struck by lightning over Hungary.
Oh, nice.
Submitted to MUFON. Hey guys, it's UFO Man. Here's a clip coming out of Hungary of what appears to be a UFO getting struck by lightning. Possibly even the UFO is staying there so it can recharge itself from the electrical storm.
Yeah.
At this time, why it's there or why it doesn't move after it gets hit. I would assume that if it gets hit by a bolt of lightning and it wasn't intentional, that it may crash to the ground. I have sped it up at normal speed so you can take a look. I have then slowed it down a little bit here. And again, I will also slow it way down so you can check it out and see how it is actually being hit. As always, please leave your comments below and make your own assessment as to what you think this object is and why it is there in the electrical storm. And I want to thank you, as always, for watching. I changed my opinion on this video. I think the reason why it's being hit by lightning is because it's intentionally there and it's using the lightning to recharge itself.
Right. Because you got to remember, a lightning storm is something basically we have the solar energy being returned from the planet upwards. If it knows there's a low system going by and it wants to regenerate, it just has to go in that area. And it's like, you know, it's energy is going to strike what's going on. Right. Absolutely. They'll be drawn to it.
I have two more clips and then we're going to round out the evening with final comments. This one here is UFOs cause a trumpet sound and power outages over Charleston, South Carolina.
See those two lights in the sky?
Yeah, I've seen this one. It's a good one.
Okay, at about 7:10, electricity went out, a very strange trumpet noise from the sky.
That's that trumpet. Tim, we had to have a show about those trumpets. They're everywhere around the world.
They're hovering.
Some of
they
them
go
are
on
faked.
top, you know, one above the other, or left and right. This is not a real video, but the colors are actually, they're not just white. Sometimes it's red and green and white, or it's white. They're changing colors. Have no idea what that is. By the way, I did look through the binoculars, and you just see it's so bright you still can't see what it is. Now they're further apart. We're down to one.
You know, just the way it's sitting there and flashing, it almost reminds me of the ordinances sometimes they'll drop from planes.
No idea.
Right. But it's been there in one spot for a long time.
Yeah.
What would cause the power
Light
outage? It
blinking
would
to the
almost have to be
right
an
just so
EMP
you can
burst.
Tell that that's not the tower.
Yeah.
What I'm
Interesting to know if there's any kind of earthquake activity around there. That you know, something electromagnetic. It's definitely real. Whatever it is, it's something.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that sound at the beginning that she had.
And it
That was
fizzled
real.
out. It disappeared. The light.
Yep, the light disappeared. That's pretty much all she saw, except, as Tommy said, those digital cameras don't do justice to lights in the sky. I don't care how far away you are. They always appear white.
Right.
When people are saying that they're seeing other colors.
Right. Well, because you have one sensor instead of two sensors, you know?
Right. Okay, here's my last one. It's the Halloween UFO over Wiltshire, England, filmed by a motorist, and there were several witnesses, but 2 witnesses in the car.
Driving in southern England on the A303, coming from sort of Wincanton to Mere area, we noticed there's lights in the sky at about 5 o'clock on Halloween 2020.
There we go.
Now, I thought they looked like, from a naked eye, lots of little dots, little lights, whereas my girlfriend thought it was just one solid beam. As you can see, it's just hovering there in the sky.
Yeah. Brake lights everywhere too.
We got this footage, but then very quickly it just disappeared. If anyone's got any explanation as to what it is, because as far as I'm concerned, it's a UFO. So we got some more footage. Again, we sort of zoomed in. It's quite grainy, but you can clearly see there's just some lights or light floating in the air, and it was in a single place the whole time. It didn't move. It didn't fly around. It just hovered there or flicker or anything. Just very strange. If anyone's got an explanation what it could be, I'd love to know. As far as I'm concerned, little green men came.
Nice.
What I'm going to say about this is a lot of people were saying to me when I posted this video is that they thought perhaps that this would be the sun poking through the clouds, but it was in the opposite direction from where the sun went down.
Yeah.
So it couldn't be that. It had to be something other. So this is a close-up, and it kind of shows like an energy field on top and on the bottom. I just thought it was kind of unique. Now, in regards to the camera difficulty, I think this is another case of that.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, it's just not a clear photo. It's just not a clear image.
Yeah.
And it's again, you're zooming way out there with a digital zoom. It's trying to figure out what to do, what it's looking at, and it's just doing its best. But like he said, from the naked eye, it looked like several small lights. So it could have been some kind of perimeter around a disc or something, maybe, or it could be independent lights.
Right.
I don't think the close-up does the video justice, because there's a really good video of the stuff coming from both angles of it, and it's pretty believable.
His girlfriend thought she saw a solid beam, so I think maybe the perspectives of each person was different.
Yeah. Depends on if they need glasses or not.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Okay, everybody on the panel, do you have any last comments in regards to tonight's show?
Well, certainly an interesting show. We saw some very interesting videos. A couple of the UFO videos there at the end were pretty doggone intriguing.
Yeah.
To me. As far as the Sasquatch attack and all that, not sure about that one. Just kind of everybody kind of believe what they want to believe on that one. But she was an interesting person, and she did tell an interesting story.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I will give you that one.
Right, and she's a good storyteller as well.
Oh yeah.
In regards to the UFO videos, I would have to say I've shown probably the most credible ones I have to date. I have a couple new ones on my channel that I didn't share, but you can check those out at UFO Man on YouTube. I want you to go over and subscribe to Tommy Highway TV. If you
I already
can.
have. You need to as well. Sign up for it.
I have a long time ago. And if anyone else wants to sign up to Tommy Highway TV, please do. He also has a couple of books. Tommy, you want to tell us about them?
Sure. I'm actually an author, folks. I've written a couple of books. One is Strange Tales from the Highway, which details very odd stories of my life. A couple of UFO sightings in there. There's a Satanist story in there that's pretty wild story. The latest book I've written, though, is called Get Trump, the Patriotic War. It's happens to be a book I dropped a couple of years ago, and it's about an upcoming civil war.
Pretty much looks like that might be the case. Anyways, I want to thank everyone in the chat. I want to thank Alex for all the super chats. I want to thank John Bruno for re-signing up as a paid member. I want to thank Thomas FESSLER for being on the panel.
Hey,
thank you, Thomas. I want to thank my co-anchor, Tommy Highway.
The one and only.
The one and only Tommy Highway. And I want to say thank you for watching.
Mm-hmm.